And addicts, particularly the brain, doesn't really like slow and steady. They're not used to slow and steady, all or nothing, all or nothing. But part of the recovery process is doing things slow and steady and being okay with that. And if I can get them to close their eyes, take a deep breath, move their shoulders, move their body a little bit, they start to reset their nervous system a little bit. And then they feel like, okay, I can get through the day. I'm not going to explode. I can get through the day.
Hey everybody, Hunter Otis here with pornfree.com. That's pxrnfree.com. I help men learn the skills to quit porn with ease and get the life that they actually want.
And I'm Nicole Otis. I'm a CSAT, a certified sex addiction therapist. I'm also a marriage and family therapist and also a brain spotting certified therapist. And we are really passionate with helping couples to restore intimacy, connection, and healthy sexuality.
Yeah, and today we have our friend Samantha Ammann here with us today. Sam, it's a pleasure having you with us. So a little bit about her. So she is also a certified sex addiction therapist. She's also specializes in helping betrayed partners. She's an EMDR trained, like she's got all kinds of things that she does, but she's also a yoga teacher. She helps resolve trauma through yoga and then also helps people recover from eating disorders as well. So there's a lot of history, a lot of expertise there, kind of multifaceted things that she does. So we're really excited to chat with you today, Sam. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your story. So anyone listening, like what should they know about you? Like how did you get into all these different things that you do? And just give us a little bit of a line there on your story.
Okay, sure. Well, I actually started seeing a therapist when I turned 30 because I was very unhappy and very overweight at the time. And it just so happens I looked up in the yellow pages, which a lot of kids don't even know what the yellow pages are. But back in the day, I looked up in the yellow pages and I found a counselor that dealt with eating disorders / addiction. I didn't quite understand the addiction part, but I knew I had a problem with food. Mm-hmm. So when I was 30, I started seeing this therapist and he introduced me to 12-step programs. So I'm very deeply rooted in 12-step programs. And one of the programs was SLAA. And so I've been in that program for a long time. And I realized at the time in my life, that's the only thing I really felt passion for was my recovery. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a CSAT. So that's why I went the route of being a licensed clinical social worker. So as soon as I got out of school, I got right into the program, the CSAT program, and traveled all over the country to go to the different modules. So I've been a CSAT since 2012. And just for my own journey, that same therapist had recommended that I go to yoga, take a yoga class to help me focus. Because a lot of times people have that attention deficit, depression, anxiety, just your brain is kind of a little off balance. For most people that have compulsive behaviors, addictions, a little bit off balance there at times.
Right.
So I started taking yoga, and then through the years, I've taken a lot of yoga. And then back in 2018, I decided that I wanted to really enhance my program. So I've got my 200 hour as a registered yoga teacher. And so I taught different friends of mine that are in recovery. Open halfway house for women. I did a little bit of yoga there with them. And then it wasn't until I decided to finish up and get the extended yoga training with Asheville Yoga Center. I got to get a little plug for Asheville Yoga Center, where I took a course on trauma and yoga. And it really opened my eyes because it was so much in line of the CSAT training of how addiction is a brain disorder, a thought disorder. And I found it just fascinating. And I thought, I really want to start teaching my clients yoga to help them reset their nervous system, to slow down their nervous system, tap into the restful, this parasympathetic part of the nervous system, the restful part of the nervous system, so that they can take a breath and make a better choice for themselves. Are you going to choose the addiction or are you going to choose recovery? And if you can slow the brain down, you've got a much better chance of making a healthier decision for yourself. So that's how yoga helps a lot with people that have compulsive behaviors, whether it's food, drugs, alcohol, sex. Some people have it all combined, And so I just decided it can be done virtually. My practice is all virtual. Since before the pandemic hit, I decided to take my practice virtually. I love that. And my clients who are open to virtual love it as well. So that's how yoga kind of came into my life, and taking a 5-day course on yoga for trauma really opened my eyes. And I at that moment decided I want to make this part of my practice to teach yoga. And so I started a chair yoga just because all you need is a chair and just it's slow, gentle movements. You could do it with your eyes closed. It's really to help reset the nervous system.
Mm.
Mm.
I
So
love that. I love that you've gotten into like yoga as a practice to help people with addictions and eating disorders. And like the question that's coming to my mind is like, do you have any idea what percentage of like maybe sexual addiction, sexual compulsivity, or eating disorders is rooted in trauma? I just, do you have any idea what the percentage is? I'm assuming that it's pretty high.
you know, I don't know. I'm not really great with numbers. I'm not one of those people that needs to know the data and the statistics of numbers. But I do know that people with eating disorders, it used to be about 92% of them have had a sexual trauma history.
Oh,
So, and all of my clients have some kind of trauma. Of course, a betrayed partner, right there. That's given. Never mind their own trauma that they might have had in their family of origin, their childhood. But right there, and I do love working with partners. So right there, it's just helping them to reset their brain to get them out of that crisis mode so they can get through the day, basically, to help them get through the day. Deep breathing, meditation, yoga to help them with that. And then as far as eating disorders, it's so much of not what you're eating, but what's eating you, what's going on. And so much of it stems in family of origin. When you grow up in whatever kind of household, when you don't have coping skills, or you have parents or caregivers who don't have coping skills, you turn to food, people turn to masturbation, they turn to alcohol, they turn to drugs to try to cope and get through the day, to just try to survive. So
Right.
I just think yoga is a great practice of self-discipline, and you can do yoga anywhere. It doesn't have to be tough power yoga where you're doing headstands. It could be just simple, keeping your joints in motion, slow and steady. I do it specifically in chair yoga, slow, steady movements to help to reset the nervous system. That's the big factor for me, the resetting the nervous system.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that because I mean, having struggled so much with pornography and compulsive behaviors myself, it's like this feeling in your body you just feel like you can't escape from.
Mm.
Right? This agitation, this just like the feeling of desperation, right?
Yes.
And I think what's powerful about what you're sharing and about the reality that trauma has a lot to do with the things that the ways that we behave and the compulsivity that we have. Like, I think a lot of people don't want to admit that because they feel like if they admit past traumas, like they're broken or there's something wrong with them. But I think what I hear coming from what you're saying is like, you know what? These things happened to you. It wasn't your choice. And also, you weren't taught the skills
Mm-hmm.
to deal with those things. The people that were your caregivers doesn't necessarily mean they were bad people, but they didn't have the skills themselves. How can they teach it to you? You were just a kid trying to survive.
Yeah.
And now, unfortunately, those an adult, it's now just your responsibility to now learn those skills and how to handle it so that you can have the life that you desire, right?
Right.
So tell me more about, I guess, like when somebody comes and works with you and, and sits in that chair, like what do you normally notice like is the most helpful for them as they start this journey with you?
As far as a CSAT, you mean, or in the yoga practice? Do you mean as a CSAT?
I guess either direction. Maybe let's focus on the yoga for a minute. Like, when you take them through like a session with you, like what is the experience like for them, and how do you notice that impact them, like from before and afterwards, like when they leave or the session ends?
Got it. So what I do is I kind of explain to them, I think people look at it like, wow, yeah, I want to heal from my trauma. And then I start to go and explain how the brain is affected by trauma. It could just be as simple as neglect or abandonment, or if you have a parent who's an addict, that's trauma for a child every day, and it doesn't have to be a huge trauma like your house burns down. We know that's a huge trauma. It could be the little T's, the little traumas every single day of a child's life. So when they come in, I do a lot of explaining in the beginning about how the brain works, how it's affected by trauma. People come into my practice and say, Sam, I struggle with depression, anxiety, and I have a hard time focusing. Those are trauma responses. And we know it's affected the brain. It just does. We know that trauma affects the brain for everybody, especially as a child. Your brain is being developed. And then, of course, that's when all these addictive behaviors come in to try to have a child survive the day without realizing what they're doing is they're trying to survive the day.
Yeah.
Food, masturbation, things like that, they're easily accessible. You have to go out and get the alcohol. You got to get the drugs, unless they're in your home, that kind of stuff. But as far as masturbation and porn, you've got the internet and food, it's right there. And people use that a lot. So I do a lot of explaining about that. I let them know that with yoga it's just a form of self-discipline. You are in control of your body. I am going to invite you to try a pose. You don't have to do that pose. You don't need my permission to tell you, don't do that pose. You listen to your body. If your left shoulder hurts, don't do that position that you feel pain in your shoulder. That's not going to be a good position for you. Don't harm yourself. Right? So it's about self-discipline. It's about listening and honoring your body now. Because when you're in compulsive behaviors, there's no honoring your body. You're doing whatever you're doing at your own harm, at your own pace. If you've been harmed by somebody else, you had no control over that, right? A betrayed partner has no control over the trauma that they've gone through. It was done to them. So yoga is a way where you get to be empowered in that chair and say, hey, I'm in control of my body here. I decide what positions I want to do. I'm just going to invite you to try this position. Maybe you want to move your shoulder 1 inch. Maybe you want to move your shoulder a full extension that you may want to do for your body. Whatever you want to do is okay. They have permission to do what they need to do for themselves. They don't need permission from me to do something different than I'm teaching them to do. So it helps to empower them and to get in touch with their body and be in control of their body. Because when you have trauma, it's something done to you. You didn't have a choice. Where yoga, you do have a choice. It's self-discipline. And it alters the nervous system in a very healthy way. So that's,
I just love what you're saying that you didn't have a choice when you're a child when these things are happening to you, or betrayal trauma or whatever, but that as you do the yoga work, it's a choice to be able to restore a relationship with your own body. Because a lot of times, addictions or compulsivities is this escape out of your body, where it sounds like yoga is really to start to have that relationship and be in tune and to honor and love your body. Right. And so I think that's part of the recovery process. It sounds like is to really develop that and honor and love this body and to be in tune instead of escape it. And oftentimes, we talk to our clients and say we should thank our younger selves that survived that trauma and that we did whatever we could to cope and survive. But it's not working for you now. It's causing unhealthy relationships, destruction for your life, right? And so to thank yourself, but then to learn the skills, and that's what we talk about is that it's a skill. Like you can learn this skill to be able to overcome the compulsivity or the addiction or the eating disorder or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and I think too, like it can be terrifying to go there. Like when you're someone that's experienced a lot and you haven't, seen the skeletons in the closet, so to speak, or you've been shutting them down, you've been slamming that door through the compulsive behaviors. I know it can be terrifying to start opening that up and letting those things air out and to work through resolving them. But it sounds like what you do with your approach can really like calming that nervous system, being able to get to a place of peace and a place of empowerment. I mean, a lot of times we're feeling just so powerless in our bodies, right? And with our brains. And so we're acting out and feel like we have no control. So when you're just describing that, like that place of safety to be able to say, no, this is my choice. I can be here. I can do this. I can move how I want to instead of this compulsion always running the show. Like just sounds like a really kind of like sacred moment, right? Where we can start to explore some of those things and help somebody reclaim power in their life again,
right.
And to heal.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's about being able to think on your own, being able to move your body and what feels good for you, honoring how your body feels. And yoga way back in the day was started where you don't just try to move your body into different poses. You do different poses to try to learn about your body and your mind. Where do you need help? Somebody that constant is go, 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 probably would struggle with chair yoga, but that's what they need. They need something to slow them down, right? Someone like, oh, I'd rather just go out and run 10 miles. Well, maybe you need something that can help slow your nervous system down instead of getting you kind of jacked up. Because in our society, so many times we just live in that sympathetic part of the nervous system, the fight or flight, the dopamine, the go, 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 the
Yes.
news, anything going on. It's like your brain is activated. You don't even have to do anything. It just gets activated. But we all have a parasympathetic nervous system. We all have a part of our nervous system that's the rest and digest part of the nervous system, but we have to physically do things to activate that part of our brain. And yoga is a great tool to help activate that restful part of the nervous system. And we have to rewire the brain, retrain the brain to go down a path of rest and calm versus a path of being jacked up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something interesting too that just came to my mind is that, like I see a lot of kind of polar opposite types of behaviors. You have somebody who's like that jacked up, like you're talking about, but it's interesting because on the other side, I have guys all the time, like, how do I find motivation? Like, I just don't want to do anything. I can't get out of bed. I can't whatever. But it was interesting about that because that was more how I trended, right? But what's interesting about that is, like, for myself personally, it's like my mind was so amped up that then my body would just shut down. Like, I would shut down and not want to get out of bed to try to escape the anxiety and the stress and all of that. So, like, what would you say for those people that trend more towards that shutting down, like can't get out of bed? It's kind of more, I guess, manifesting like depression, like they can't move. How would this also help someone like that?
Right. That is hard. It's very dissociative. A lot of people are very dissociative. Like the body's doing this and the brain, I want to get up, I want to go, but I can't. And I can relate to that. So what I try to do with my clients is that, addicts' brains tend to be all or nothing. You're the jacked up or you're flat out doing nothing. So it's about trying to be in that middle path. But that middle path is where your feelings are, and that's where your pain is. But that's also where the joy is in life, is in the middle path of the road. So I let people know, first of all, if we're in a session, let's do 5 minutes of stretches. Let's do 5 minutes of deep breathing. And just, even if someone's in their car, let's just move your shoulders and close your eyes, do it slowly, and notice how your nervous system starts to change just by doing some positions. So I'll even invite them to do 5 or 10 minutes at the end of a session to do some yoga, and maybe encourage them, just spend 5 minutes doing it. You don't have to go to a yoga class for an hour every day. Start slow and steady. Sometimes it's really hard to get started, like anything else, especially if your dopamine levels are low, because it used to be in real high. For every high, there's an equal low. Now your dopamine levels are low and it's hard to get up and get motivated. So I try to motivate them that way during a session, and then just try 5 minutes. And that's what I suggest to my clients too. What I try to do is I'm going to invite you to try these positions. Try some of your favorite ones at home. If you like 3 poses that we're doing in chair yoga, do those 3 poses. It's okay. It's okay to just do 3 yoga poses at home. It's okay to do 1 minute of yoga stretches at home. That's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's all or nothing. If I don't do it all, if I don't do it right, I'm not going to do it at all. And that's that perfectionism, right? I can't do it right. I can't do it perfectly, so I'm not going to do anything at all. That's perfectionism as well.
I can't do it for 45 minutes or 30 minutes or like this
Right.
time that they have in their mind that it has to be this, right? Then they won't do it at all. It's the all or nothing.
Yeah. I love you bringing up like that middle of the road, and that's where joy is. Like, that just really made me think for a second. It's like, we often associate joy with this jacked up, like, higher than life type of a feeling, but that's not really joy. That's like exhilaration, excitement. And with the rise comes the fall, right? And so understanding that joy really is in that middle ground where there's peace and like acceptance and groundedness, that holding space for yourself.
Yeah.
That's really a beautiful way of looking at it. And so I love like that educational piece as well with it. It's like, okay, we're doing this practice, but the reason why we're doing this is because that's where we're trying to get you. We're trying to get you into this middle ground where you can feel those things and be happy, right? Instead of always chasing some extreme that is so fleeting. The moment it comes, it goes, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually did a little research on the word happiness and joy. And if you look at the root words of joy, it actually is this deep inner place of peace, right? Whereas, and then if you look at the root word of happiness, it's actually external. And happiness is fleeting, where it's like, I feel happy because my spouse is happy with me, or I feel happy because I got a raise at work, right? So all that stuff is external. It brings me happiness, but that can be so fleeting. Whereas this joy comes from this deep internal state of feeling connected to yourself, to the world, right? It's an internal process, right? And so it's not this high that's just, the high that you're experiencing that is fleeting. But that's a little side note that I wanted to mention. But I kind of wanted to go back to like the yoga. You're talking about yoga, and as it's like a meditative practice. And I heard once in the CSAT training from a colleague that someone who does meditation, like not a long meditation, but 3 short meditations a day, can really accelerate their recovery. And so, my question to you is like about yoga and it being a meditative practice. It's not just moving your body, right, and doing certain poses,
Right, some mechanical thing. There's
right.
something more.
Right. Yeah. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit about how maybe yoga is like a meditative practice, not just an exercise?
Sure. And this is what I like about chair yoga. It works great for senior citizens that struggle with their bodies, can't move their bodies in these tough, hard positions. I don't like doing tough, hard yoga. I don't like to do handstands and pretzels. I don't like that kind of stuff in yoga. I want it to be where I can connect my heart, my soul, my body and be peaceful. So what I like about chair yoga, it's more of a meditation. It's very slow. I do slow movements. Like if you're going to move your shoulder, just go very slow. The slower, the better. And it's hard for people to go slow sometimes, moving their bodies. I tell them, it's just like you're giving yourself a massage on the inside and go slow. If you were to get a tough massage and it hurt, I hope you would tell the massage therapist, hey, slow down. That hurt, a little less pressure. So you're doing that with your own body. So a lot of times I'll tell my clients, if you're grounded on a chair, you can do all these poses. I can guide you. You can keep your eyes closed. You can do this in the dark and keep your eyes closed, and it will help to reset the nervous system. And to talk about breathing, just slow, steady breathing while you're doing these poses. Don't hold the breath. Nothing's going to be strenuous, but it's this relaxation you feel in your body, your joints, and the mind that's really so beneficial. It's so much about slowing the nervous system down. It's so vital. And that the healing can begin then, when partners are in that crisis, just devastated doesn't even describe it anymore. You got to find a new word for it. But when they're in devastation, if I can get them to close their eyes, take a deep breath, move their shoulders, move their body a little bit, they start to reset their nervous system a little bit. And then they feel like, okay, I can get through the day. I'm not going to explode. I can get through the day. And same thing with addicts with that anxiety. If you're going through withdrawal of doing something you've done for, 20, 30 years every single day, and your nervous system is so used to that dopamine hit that when you don't get that dopamine hit, your brain chemistry is going to be kind of low for a while. And so it's just about doing things naturally in a natural way to alter the nervous system. So that's how I do. I explain it. And then how I was taught with yoga is that you need to have a good 8 to 10 minute shavasana, which asana means movement, shava means without. So it's lack of movement. And at the end of the yoga practice, I invite people, if they want to sit on the chair, they can lay on the couch, lay on a yoga mat, and I just guide them a little bit. And then it's silence where they're just in a restful, calm, still place for about 10 minutes. Cause it basically takes about 8 minutes of shavasana to kind of tap into the vagus nerve and really get into that restful pose. So that's what I do. A lot of it is education. A lot of them just speaking as to why this helps instead of just, go take this yoga class. And then you're trying to move your arms and you're just trying to focus on, am I doing it right? And there's no wrong way to do it. Oh my gosh,
I'm not flexible at all. I'm dying.
Right. So it's okay. And it's okay to not be flexible. None of us are that flexible until we practice. It's a discipline. You practice yoga, you become a little bit more flexible, right? Like you become a little bit more sober when you work a program and you just practice sobriety. Well, here you just practice gentle mobility with your body, and you practice resetting your nervous system. Meditation is something you practice. Deep breathing, you practice it. Yoga, you practice it, and you get better at what you practice, what you focus on. If you focus on your addiction, that's going to grow. If you focus on recovery is going to grow. If you focus on trying to heal your nervous system will start to heal. That's really has been my experience and my philosophy about it.
Well, it's interesting too, because a lot of that tension that we have in our bodies, well, is it really just because you're not flexible, or is it because your neurology is just like, locked, right? Or just so much tension, and you're trying to relieve that. So instead of trying to relieve it through a compulsive behavior that ends up just creating more of it, like surrendering into this type of a practice, really letting go is huge. And it's funny because I think going back to those guys that really tend to shut down, like they're so active here, but then they shut down and dissociate and what have you. It's like, well, I'm not moving at all. So like, why would I spend more time being still? It's like, well, this is different, guys.
Yeah.
This is like intentional stillness of really coming to a quietness and an acceptance of yourself and where you're at. And it's different than just doing nothing.
Well, then it's also,
it's an active practice,
but it's also, I just wanted to add to that is just a stillness of the mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So training, it's an intention and a motivation to help still the mind and the body. So your body might be still, but your mind may not. Right. Or there's certain muscles or certain things in your body, even if you're still, that they're still tense, or you're still in that fight, flight, or freeze. Right. So you could actually really be in that freeze state. Right. And so, so it's that intention. It's the intention to meditate, to breathe, to actually get that nervous system where it's balanced and online.
Right. So it seems like a strange idea. Like, I'm not moving, so I should be still so that I can move. It's like, wait a second. Like, logically, it doesn't really make that much sense. But understand that we're talking about working with the brain here to help calm yourself down. There's things going on. Like, I've done neurofeedback. And even this last year was really struggling with sleep issues and things. And what my therapist there said to do, he's like, every day do something that helps you get into that like theta brainwave state, where he's like, get in the bath with the magnesium salts and turn on some music and just let your brain go into that like kind of half between consciousness and relaxation like state, right? Where you're just not thinking, you're intentionally just letting yourself calm down so your brain can just relax and activate more of those brainwaves that can help your brain to heal and your body to heal. Like, that's what the types of things, there's so much going on. I think those people just have no clue about when you're doing a meditative practice like this,
right?
That can be so healing for you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard for people to meditate. When I started meditating decades ago, I just would set my phone alarm for 2 minutes, and then I would like focus on a word and breathe for 2 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, I did it. And that was it. Well, that's a good start. And you build on that. So with yoga, it's like you're just doing slow, gentle movements. It's good to keep the body in motion. As we all age, we need to keep our bodies in healthy motion. So yoga is just about doing some healthy motion while you're slowing your brain down. And then if you can, and getting to that shavasana at the end where it's the corpse pose, it's the lack of movement where you're just laying still. And if the mind wanders, which that's what minds do, they think, they overthink, and they wander, just gently bring it back to your breath. And if you're not sure, how do you focus on your breath? You can just focus on this part of your face. The nose and the mouth is your breath. So I just tell them, just focus on this triangle area. And that helps them focus on something in addition to focusing on the breath. And it does help the mind to focus a little bit more. And it's okay not to judge yourself. Do not beat yourself up because your mind wanders 100 times during a yoga class. It's going to wander. That's what minds do. You have a very active mind. Some ways it's great, academically, profession-wise, business, but sometimes emotionally over here, people tend to struggle with that. So it's just about integrating all the parts of us, right? All the parts that we have, integrating that, our body, our mind, our soul, our spirit, and just, moving forward in life and healing. It's so possible. It is so possible. And yoga is a great tool. I don't think yoga is the cure for addiction. I've heard that one time someone said yoga cures addiction. I haven't seen that, but it's a great tool to assist with recovery. It's a
Mhm.
great tool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's it. There's not some like magic pill that's
No.
going to magically fix an addiction or compulsive eating disorder or trauma, right? And so, but if we can get out of this frame of mind of like seeking after that magic pill, or I'm going to find that secret answer that's going to fix my problems, and surrender more into it being about, learning a skill set,
Yes.
right? It's a practice of different coping skills and learning how to accept yourself, and it's multifaceted, but I think that's why a lot of people get overwhelmed and they just don't even start. But like we can, all three of us can promise you, if you're listening to this, like if you start small with one thing, you can do that one thing,
Mhm.
and you're
Of
going to get better
course.
at that, and then you're going to find something else that you can do, that one small simple thing, and you add that in, and over time, all of a sudden, things are going to start getting a little easier. You're going to start feeling better. And the better you feel, the better decisions you make, you
Hmm.
know? And it's going to be from a grounded place rather than this amped up, just dopamine explosion, right? And then now you're going to start building momentum. And so, like an encouragement that I have, that I think, the two of you can also second, is just like, let it be slow, let it be small, let it be okay. Like just start something. And there are people like, like Sam, there are people that can help, with that accountability. Like even, you schedule a session with Sam, for example, like, well, it's your chances of doing it are going to go up because you're probably going to show up for that appointment, right? And you can have somebody help you get better at this new practice, right? That's going to build you up over time. But just don't do it. Don't do it alone. And there's support,
Mhm.
Right.
and it's okay that you struggle. It's okay. Like we've all been there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Small changes create big outcomes down the road. It's just
Yeah.
so many times people want that instant gratification. I want to walk a mile and feel great afterwards. And I want to walk a mile and lose those 10 pounds. And it's like, no, it's slow. It's slow and steady. And addicts, particularly the brain, doesn't really like slow and steady. They're not used to slow and steady. Fat, all or nothing, all or nothing. But
Right.
part of the recovery process is doing things slow and steady and being okay with that and knowing that is good enough.
Mm.
Yes.
It's good enough to go slow and steady. Small changes will make big outcomes down the road. You just have to keep moving forward
Mhm.
one
Yeah.
step at a time.
Yep.
Add to your list of tools, add to the list of tools that help stay with sobriety and eating better and a little bit of exercise and doing things to help slower down the nervous system. And like we talked about earlier, then when you start doing these things, all of a sudden you start feeling a little bit of joy in your life. You enjoy your pets more, you enjoy your children more, you're more present for things in life. And then the joy is able to come into your life. I so believe in that. I
Yeah.
really do. I so believe in that.
Yep. Yeah.
I
One
love
thing
that.
that I often say is the small and simple things bring great things, right? The small and simple. And I think that those small and simple practices is a form of self love,
Yes.
right? So when you take those, even if it's a minute to take some deep breathing or to do yoga or to reach out to a friend or invest in yourself with therapy or yoga practices, all those small and simple things is a form to show up for yourself and to invest in yourself. And I really do think that that's a big part of the recovery work and the therapy work. At least that's what we do, is to really help people to truly find that love for themselves and compassion for themselves. And
Yep.
and when you're doing that self-care, that's showing yourself that I'm worth this amount of time
Hmm.
to do this for myself.
Yeah. And I think
Mhm.
this is difficult for women too, but coming from a male perspective, like we're taught to not have emotions, to toughen up, and, don't, whatever, this whole love, mushy, gushy stuff, like what is that? Like I'm supposed to be this tough, strong guy. Like, so loving myself, accepting myself, what is that? Like, no, we're supposed to just hammer it home and get your butt in gear. And, there's a lot of performance driven stuff. But for any of the men listening to this that struggle with that, like we're craving love and acceptance. and you can give that to yourself. Like, it's a choice that you can give to yourself, and like that's what you're doing when you're doing these practices, is you're accepting and loving yourself and helping to start fill that void that you're longing for, and trying to find in things that never satisfy. And so this is like a challenge to anyone listening, like, try it, surrender to it, because there are incredible gifts on the other side of it. And it is a gift, a beautiful gift you can give to yourself, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
I always tell my clients that self-care builds self-esteem, builds self-love. Whether it's somebody who's active with addiction or a betrayed partner, I let the betrayed partner know, start with whatever self-care you can do, because that self-care builds the self-esteem, builds the self-love. It really, really does. And that part of that, all of us humans have that vulnerability inside of us. And it's such a sign of strength and courage to be able to access and show that vulnerability, because we're all humans, no matter what. You break down being this addict or addicted to this, we're all humans first. And it really is about just trying to get back to your own humanness, and living within your integrity, and being comfortable in your own skin. And it takes a little time. It takes time.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. It is so worth it.
Yes.
Yeah, because a few years of time spent in recovery and learning these skills sure beats a lifetime of suffering.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So it's worth the time.
Yeah. Like I tell my clients, it's like a chokehold on you. Addiction is like a chokehold on you. It's like you're stuck in a cage, but you've got the key, but you can't open that cage. You just can't seem to open that cage up. And then if you bring people in your life to help you, it takes a village to live a healthy lifestyle, I think, today. I think it just does. But if you go to places like 12-step programs and therapy and groups and things like that, where there are other people that are trying to be healthy as well, you've got a better chance of moving forward and being healthy. Doing it alone is really hard, and you don't have to do it alone.
Yep.
Yes.
There is support out there. There's a lot of support. Sometimes you just have to ask, where can I get this support? What type of support do you need? Sometimes people don't even realize what support they need, that they need support. Everybody's so used to doing things on their own. I've got this. And it's like, nope, this has you. You don't have it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that support, this is probably a good spot to wrap up. But like, if someone were to want to, try a virtual session with you, like, where do they go? How can they find you? And
well, I do a couple of ways. I do have a website. It's my first and last name.com. So it's Samantha Ammann, SAMANTHA my phone number is there. That's my direct, personal, confidential cell phone. So they can call me. They can text me on that number. It's 727-458-3668, or they can send me an email. The email is my last name, AmmannSocialServices@gmail.com. And it's all on my website as well. So if you have my name, you just look up my website, you can contact me that way. So yeah, I just love the chair yoga for trauma. It feels so good to teach it. It feels good to help other people in addition to being a CSAT, kind of adding to their healthy tools. So
yeah,
I'd be happy to help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll put a link to your website. I'll put all your information in the description, whether somebody's listening or watching this on YouTube. I'll put a link below the video or in the description. And I think also your sessions are very cost effective too for people. Like it's very, very cost effective to be able to try a yoga session with Sam. So it's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah. And they can live wherever, right? Like, so anybody can come in from all around the world, any state, to do those sessions.
I'm just a yoga teacher, for the teaching the yoga. It'd be great if you had a chair. If you don't, you could sit on the edge of a bed. You could sit on a couch like this, and we can always work with what you've got, so you can do chair yoga anywhere, as long, sitting down, you can do that. So I'd highly recommend it. It's just I love it. I love doing chair yoga myself, and I love teaching it.
Yeah. And
Love
if
it.
someone wants to do therapy with you, what states are you licensed in?
I'm licensed in the state of Tennessee and Florida.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
awesome.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
like we talked about being in that environment with more support. If you're watching this, listening to this, and you're not yet, if you're struggling with pornography and you're not yet in the Porn Free Brotherhood, I'll put a link below we have a free community. We do also have a paid community. It's called the Porn Free Revolution. That's where you get the step-by-step everything that you need to quit porn A to Z. We've got that there for you. So don't do it alone. There's free resources. There's other resources. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do and get support. Being in that environment where other people are on that similar path absolutely tremendously increases your chances of success. So links below the video for that. Otherwise, anything else, Nicole, before we wrap?
No, we're just so grateful to have you here today and to learn more about the yoga practices and how that helps people. And so we're just so grateful for the time that we had with you today. So thank you, Sam.